Looking for the perfect happy hour to unwind after a long day at work? Look no further than Walter's Indoor-Outdoor Happy Hour, catering to everyone who lives in and around Navy Yard. $5 happy hour options include salmon sliders and house red wine.
Here's the pitch. Swinging a fly ball, left field, toward the line, coming in his hap. Runner is tagging. He makes the catch. He's going to try and score. Here comes the throw. It's on line. The dive and the tag. He is saved. Dalen Lyle scores. 2 runs home in the inning, and the Nationals lead 3-1.
Here's the set at the belt. The 3-2 pitch. Low, ball 4. He walks in a run. It's 5-3 Chicago. Happ scores. Bush with the RBI bases loaded walk. Here's the set. There they go. Here it comes. Swinging a ground ball right side through for a base hit. Crow Armstrong scores. Kelly coming in behind him. And 2 runs will cross. Over to third, Bush. Seeing eye ground ball single. The Cubs have scored 4 big runs in the inning and lead it 7-3.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. Mark Zuckerman is off for this installment of the podcast, but I'm pleased to be joined by the man who runs the podcast, Tim Shovers. So the Chicago Cubs, they are maybe the best team in the National League. The Nationals on Tuesday evening began a 3-game series against the Cubs at Nationals Park, and the result was an 8-3 loss to the Cubs in a game in which the Nats did blow a 3-1 4th-inning lead. The Nats in MLB's 2025 regular season now are 28-32. The Cubs in this regular season now are a National League Central best 38-22 with a National League best run differential of plus 102. You can find us on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email the program, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. And we have a website that you can check out, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. This game on Tuesday evening was fairly simple. The Nats pitching, not good. The Nats hitting, not good. The Nats defense had problems. Nats manager Davey Martinez, during his postgame press conference on Tuesday night, called the Nats performance weird. That's certainly one way of putting it.
It's a weird game.
But Tim, off the great 4-2 trip out west, the Nats started off this 6-game homestand in a pretty rough way.
There was no momentum that carried over from Trevor Williams' shutout on the West Coast road trip. Even though the Nats got the early lead up 3-1, and as we've talked about, usually when they score early, that means it's going to be a good night. When they don't score early, it's not. But this time it didn't happen. They scored early, but that was it. And then the Cubs put up all the offense the rest of the way. And, another frustrating Trevor Williams performance to watch.
It was Trevor Williams, the former member of the Chicago Cubs. So we know he's not having a good season, but like Tim just said, he was coming off a good outing. Williams in the Nats 9-0 win at the Seattle Mariners late night this past Wednesday night, May 28th, 6 scoreless innings. And so we wondered, okay, maybe, just maybe, Trevor Williams is getting on track here. But Williams in this 8-3 loss to the Cubs on Tuesday evening, not good. He officially allowed 5 runs in 4 1/3 innings. He gave up 5 hits, which were a triple, 2 doubles, and 2 singles. He did have 4 strikeouts versus 1 walk, and he did throw a lot of strikes, 76 pitches, 50 strikes, 26 balls. And he began the game with an impressive first inning. Williams in the top of the first issued a leadoff walk of Ian Happ, but Williams then generated 3 consecutive swinging strikeouts, which were of the Cubs' numbers 2 through 4 batters in Seiya Suzuki, Pete Crow Armstrong, and Carson Kelly. So Williams' first inning ended up being great, but Williams then was charged with 5 runs over the next 3 1/3 innings. You know, the Cubs are a good offensive team. They, for this regular season, as of games through Monday, were 3rd in the majors in team OPS plus at 124. This is a tough matchup for any pitcher, and Trevor Williams on Tuesday evening got. And so you look at Williams now for the regular season here, 12 starts, ERA of 6.03, whip of 1.44. We know that there are candidates to replace him in the rotation. Reliever Brad Lord would be a candidate. He was showing improvement as a starting pitcher earlier this season, while in the rotation in place of the injured Michael Soroka. Cade Cavalli is a candidate. He actually pitched on Tuesday evening. He pitched in a 6-5, 10-inning loss for the Nats AAA affiliate, the Rochester Red Wings, at the Worcester Red Sox, although Cavalli in that game, 2 runs, 4 2/3 innings. His ERA for Rochester for this season is at 4.63. Tim, we've had the Trevor Williams conversation. Mark has outlined why we should not be anticipating necessarily Williams being removed from the rotation. But man, 6.03 ERA. That is brutal.
It's brutal, and it's not befitting of someone in a starting rotation in the major leagues 2+ months into the season. I know he just had this shutout, but you laid the numbers out there. The last outing seems like much of an outlier. This outing seems like status quo. They are in a funny part of the rebuild, as we all know, and not to get too far into that, but where I'm going is anytime they want to pull Trevor Williams out of the rotation is fine by me, and go with Lord or Cavalli like you just mentioned. It's just every time he goes through the order the second time, you can see the hitters getting more and more comfortable. The Cubs certainly did that, and it's just like, if he can only really face and fool hitters one time through the order, that's called a reliever.
Yeah, and he has served in that role previously, and I don't know why him going back to that role is such a stretch, but it seems to be a stretch. It doesn't seem to be something that the Nats are inclined to do. I get it. He was very good last season, but you know what's interesting? So Trevor Williams was really good last season. That was over 13 starts, right? He missed a lot of time last season due to injury. We're already up to 12 starts for Williams here in this regular season. He's almost at the same amount of starts this regular season that he had all of last regular season. So, like, what he did last season was great, but it was over a fairly small sample size. And what he did in the 2023 season was really bad. And, you know, if you're being objective about this, the overall body of work for Trevor Williams with the Nats has been bad. You know, there have been pockets of him doing well, but the overall numbers are quite bad. There are options here. You know, the Brad Lord thing, they just don't seem to be super enthused about him as a starting pitcher right now, because there was a case for him to stay in the rotation, and that didn't seem to go anywhere. He's been moved to the bullpen, and right now he seems like he's just another reliever as opposed to being groomed to be a starter. Cavalli is the interesting thing here, but he's had this up and down season for Rochester, so it's not like Cavalli is necessarily knocking down the door to be brought up to the majors. But of course, with Cavalli, there is this belief that there's upside, right? As a first round pick in 2020. With Williams, you know, he's a veteran. You kind of feel like he is what he is, and what he has been so far this season is not particularly good. The Nats bullpen in this 8-3 loss to the Cubs on Tuesday evening was bad. 5 Nats relievers officially combined to allow 3 runs in 4 2/3 innings. Andrew Chafin was charged with 2 runs without recording an out. He hit a Cubs 4-run fifth, faced 3 batters, and got no outs. He sandwiched 2 one-out walks around a one-out single, and the second one-out walk was a one-out bases-loaded walk of Michael Busch for a 5-3 Cubs lead. Cole Henry, he has been good as a reliever, but he in this game was not good. He officially tossed 2/3 of a scoreless inning, but you cannot go by that. Henry in the Cubs' 4-run fifth, faced 4 batters, got 2 outs, gave up a 2-out full count 2-run opposite field single by Nico Hoerner through the right side of the infield for a 7-3 Cubs lead, despite Henry having had Hoerner down to the count at 1.12. Eduardo Salazar tossed a scoreless and hitless top of the 6th with 2 swinging strikeouts. Zach Brixey allowed 1 run in 2 innings. He in the top of the 7th gave up a leadoff homer by Michael Busch on a bomb to right center for an 8-3 Cubs lead. The homer went a projected 410 feet per StatCast, and Jackson Rutledge tossed a perfect top of the 9th. That actually stood out to me, that Rutledge was used in what was essentially mop-up duty. He had been doing well. His last outing was not good, and Davey Martinez actually had Rutledge as the mop-up man in this game.
Yeah, he did have him as the mop-up guy, though. Things got thrown off a little bit from Brixey throwing 2 innings, so, you know, I don't know exactly who was available, but you talk about the pen struggling, Al, and it really was Andrew Chafin in the 5th inning, unable to get anyone out, let the game get away, really. And then Henry had to come in and struggled, as you said. And so Salazar's warming up. And so they used 3 arms in the 5th, really 4 if you count Salazar warming up. And so Chafin screwed up everything for the rest of the evening. And Davey Martinez even mentioned after the game that he was, I believe he used the word surprised that Chafin walked 2 of the 3 hitters, disappointed in his veteran lefty.
You know, he's a veteran guy, he's a professional, knows how to get guys out, you know, especially lefties. I was really surprised he walked those guys.
Yeah, Davey, during his post-game presser, made a big deal about the walks. The Nats in this game got out-walked 5-1. The Cubs, like I said, are a very good offensive team, drawing 5 walks for the game as compared to just 1 by the Nats. Hey, Al Galdi here for Window Nation. We're midway through the year, and for many people, that means summer vacation is coming up. Will your windows keep your home protected while you're away? Save yourself the headache of coming home to a potential break-in by replacing your windows today with Window Nation windows. Right now, when you buy 4 windows, you get 4 windows free, plus you get a free exterior door when you purchase a house full of windows. And on top of that, you won't have to put any money down, pay any interest, or deal with any monthly payments for 24 months. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast. In this economy, what Window Nation is offering right now is a great deal. Your electricity bill is another good indicator of how well your windows are working, especially with summer temperatures here to stay. Lucky for you, Window Nation offers top quality, energy efficient vinyl windows built to withstand the sun's heat and keep your home cool. And did I mention that Window Nation windows come with a lifetime warranty? Don't miss your chance to protect and upgrade your home with Window Nation windows. Buy 4 windows, get 4 windows free now through June 30th. And remember, you won't pay a thing for 24 months. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com. That's 866-90NATION or windownation.com. And tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast.
Trying to pick up the game's first run with Abrams at third. Here's the set. And the 1-2 delivery. Swing a line drive left field. That's down for a base hit, and the Nationals take the lead. Abrams trots in to score. Garcia delivers a single to left. Nationals 1, Cubs nothing.
With the Nats offense in this game, so the offense started off well, but then ended up struggling. The Nats scored 3 runs over the first 3 innings, but then got shut out over the final 6 innings. The Nats for the game, 3 runs, 8 hits, just 1 walk, just 2 for 10 with runners in scoring position. The 8 hits were 3 doubles and 5 singles. The Cubs starting pitcher, Cade Horton, he allowed 3 runs in 5 1/3 innings, but 3 Cubs relievers combined for 3 2/3 scoreless innings. So the Cubs bullpen in this game shut down the Nats. James Wood, he is the Nats starting left fielder and number 2 batter, 1 for 3 with a double and an RBI sac fly. Luis Garcia Jr. had a good game. He is the Nats starting second baseman and number 4 batter, went 3 for 4 with an RBI single and 2 other singles, though he did get thrown out in an attempted steal of second base. Dalen Lyle as the Nats starting right fielder and number 9 batter, 1 for 3 with a double. Jose Teña as the Nats starting third baseman and number 8 batter, 1 for 2 with a double and a walk. But yeah, beyond those first 3 innings, not much happening with the Nats offense in this game.
Not much from the offense, and I'm going to make the loss sting even more for our listeners, and that is that Cade Horton was the 7th overall pick in the draft 3 years ago, just 2 picks after the Nats selected Elijah Green. So while Elijah Green is back at West Palm trying to figure out how to not strike out every other at bat, Cade Horton goes out and beats the Nats in D.C., which is also, as an aside, why Horton came from Oklahoma, why you should only draft college players and not high school guys in the first round, but for a different time. But I couldn't get over that all evening. It just watching him take care of the Nats. And also, another thing, Al, which was funny, was, as I said, how they took the lead early, and you thought, all right, they're going to have a big night. But it was almost like once the wheels came off in the 5th, then the offense fell asleep. And it's just another reminder that sometimes it seems like the offense is too almost like emotional based upon what happens defensively. I don't really have good numbers to back that up, but that's just something I've noticed over the years.
Yeah, and I do want to mention something about the Nats defense momentarily, but you mentioned Elijah Green. We have not talked about this. What is happening with Elijah Green is frightening here. So, like you said, a guy who the Nats took with a first-round pick, the number 5 overall pick in the 2022 MLB draft out of IMG Academy in Florida. And Elijah Green has essentially been demoted from High A Wilmington to the Nats spring training facility in West Palm Beach, Florida, because he can't stop striking out. Green for this season for Wilmington, 64 strikeouts in 140 plate appearances. Think about that. Nearly half of his plate appearances this season have resulted in strikeouts. If you look at Elijah Green over his entire minor league career, 1,019 plate appearances, 441 strikeouts. A strikeout rate like that is jaw-dropping. And while it is risky and probably foolish to write someone off this soon into his professional career when a guy was taken with a number 5 overall pick, he right now is doing so poorly and things are going so badly that if you're a Nats fan, you can't help but look at this right now and say the Nats blew it. They completely whiffed in taking this guy with the number 5 overall pick. We'll see. I mean, you don't give up on him. And, I'm certainly rooting for the guy. But, man, right now, it does not look good for Elijah Green. And when we talk about the Nats and where they are in the rebuild and the screaming need for this team to get better at drafting and player development and some of the encouraging signs that we've seen over these last 2 seasons, you see something like Elijah Green, and it puts you right back to where you were a few years ago when it was glaring how poorly the Nats had done in the departments of drafting and player development. But with the Nats defense in this loss to the Cubs on Tuesday evening. So I mentioned Jose Teña. He had a double and a walk in this game, but he also had a really bad defensive moment. So Teña in the Cubs' 2-run fourth. Pete Crow Armstrong is at third base. Nobody's out. Nats are up 3-1. Carson Kelly hits a grounder to Teña, who, to his credit, makes a nice play to field a high hop. But Teña doesn't get an out. He essentially freezes.
3-0 on Kelly. And the pitch swung on, grounded wide of third. Good play, Teña. And they have the runner hung up. Now Armstrong is going to get back to the bag.
He stares Crow Armstrong back to third base, but Teña doesn't throw to first base. And the Cubs go on to score 2 runs in the inning. And Davey Martinez, during his post-game presser, was pretty critical of Teña in this spot.
Too late to throw the ball first. You just got to come up looking back, and just fire the ball to first base and then see what happens.
And for good reason. You cannot have that in a moment like that. Teña just doing nothing with the baseball. Made the nice pick of the grounder, but then did not get an out.
It was a really unfortunate sequence because you knew that Williams was the hourglass was going to run out soon for a Trevor Williams start. So any free out that's not taken advantage of could cause a real issue. And then certainly that occurred there as Teña misplayed it. By the way, Pete Crow Armstrong, what a fantastic player. He was a pleasure to watch in this game. Seemed like he did everything with the glove, the bat, and his legs on the bases. But yeah, the Nats defense all night was off. The Teña play was by far the most egregious one. And count me down now, by the way, while we're talking about third base, and it's June. Anytime Brady House wants to get called up is fine by me. He had his 11th homer of the season, by the way, in AAA on Tuesday night.
Yeah, Brady House homering in that aforementioned 10-inning loss for Rochester at Worcester. Only went 1 for 5, but the one was another homer. House for this season for Rochester, OPS of .863, 11 home runs. You talk about knocking on the door. Cade Cavalli not necessarily doing that. Brady House is doing that with that .863 OPS. House per MLB Pipeline is the Nats' number 3 overall prospect and is the number 94 overall prospect in baseball. I'm with you. I'm excited to see him promoted to the majors. I think we all expect that at some point this season. When exactly that'll happen, who knows? But, I mean, the performance right now would seem to be saying, hey, man, I'm ready. And, to House's credit, he last season did struggle at Rochester. He this season has been a lot better at the AAA level. To put a capper, though, on the conversation about the Nats defense, this continues to be a weakness. The Nats came into this game for this regular season being just 26 out of 30 major league teams in Sports Info Solutions. Defensive run saved -16, 29th out of 30 major league teams in StatCast. Outs above average -15. This just is not a good defensive team, and really saw that in this game. And, I think most people get this by now, but defense is not just about errors. It's about something like that Jose Teña play on which he doesn't get an error. But that's a bad defensive moment, a really bad defensive moment, and it stood out as the Cubs went on to score, as mentioned, 2 runs in that inning. So a bad start for the Nats to this series. Still got 2 games to go, and the ace is up next. Game 2 for the Nats against the Cubs at Nationals Park Wednesday evening at 6:45. MacKenzie Gore will be the Nats starting pitcher. Gore is having such a good season, and as you said to me off the air recently, you find yourself these days looking forward to MacKenzie Gore starts in a way that you have not looked forward to any Nationals starting pitchers starts in recent years.
That's exactly right. Wednesday is a Gore day. Circle it on your calendar. It's fun to get excited about a stud starting pitcher taking the mound. I really want to see how many strikeouts he can get this year. He's on his way to 200 plus. I want to see if he can get the strikeout crown for the season. He's got Zach Wheeler and Tarek Skubal and some tough guys right there with him. But yeah, Al, if he's on, right, and he has 6 or 7 Ks through 4 innings or something like that, that's a really fun thing to watch. Now, selfishly, I don't want to sound too old. I'd love it if he pitched more innings, but I get it. It's 2025, and most guys just go 6, and that's what it is. But yeah, I mean, we haven't had this, Al, since Scherzer got traded away, right? I mean, I'm not comparing MacKenzie Gore to Max Scherzer, but in terms of Washington Nationals stud starting pitchers, this is where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, Josiah Gray 2 years ago had a step forward season, but I wouldn't say it was like a, shall we say, sexy season. Like, this is a sexy season that MacKenzie Gore is having with all the strikeouts. Gray was good 2 years ago, but he did remember go through a stretch in which he was not good. And Gray is just not a high strikeout guy. So, his good work was more just about run prevention, which matters, don't get me wrong. But with Gore, there is this real appeal of, man, the strikeout. And he's having one of these seasons, at least so far, the likes of which you don't see often, especially these days. A guy who has the potential here to reach a sky-high number for the season in terms of strikeouts. And I feel like we need a name for days on which MacKenzie Gore starts, right? We had Strasmus for Steven Strasburg. We had Schurzday for Max Scherzer. We need some sort of a name, some sort of a label for the days on which MacKenzie Gore pitches. So I don't know if you have anything in mind. I'd be interested to hear from anyone who is listening and can come up with something. You can hit us up on X with that at Nats_chat. Hit us up on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email your suggestions, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. What do we call days on which MacKenzie Gore is pitching, given the season that he's having?
I'm going to have to think about that. I love that. I mean, Gore Day is the laziest thing that popped in my head. I think we can do better than that one, right? Anything bouncing around in your head? I got nothing now. I'll be honest.
No, I'm gonna have to think about this, but we need something because he's having a special season here, and it's time to highlight that. So this will be a juicy matchup. Like I said, Cubs, really good team, really good offensive team. So this is power versus power come Wednesday evening at Nationals Park. MacKenzie Gore, the great campaign that he's having, taking on the Cubs, who are having a terrific season.
Life as a small business owner. Everything is your problem, and there aren't enough hours in the day. That's where LinkedIn Jobs, and by proxy Nats Chat, are here to help. For those crucial hires that you absolutely can't whiff on, turn to LinkedIn Jobs. Simply post your job, and LinkedIn will take it from there, making sure it gets in front of the properly qualified candidates who are searching themselves. Find out why more than 2.5 million small business owners have turned to LinkedIn Jobs to grow their staff. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/natschat. That's linkedin.com/natschat to post your jobs for free. linkedin.com/natschat. Terms and conditions apply.
Presley ready. Here's his pitch. Swinging a chopper back to the pitcher. Fielded by Presley off his left side. Underhand toss to first in time, and the Cubs win it. 8-3 the final. The Nationals drop game 1 of this series and 6-game homestand as the Cubs break it open with a 4-run fifth and make a winner of the rookie Cade Horton.
Well, also on Tuesday was an interesting piece from arguably the #1 national MLB insider in Jeff Passan of ESPN. You talk about the prominent national MLB insiders. You have Ken Rosenthal, who we talked about recently with his recent piece blasting the Nats, but Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic. You have, say, a Buster Olney for ESPN, and you have Jeff Passan of ESPN. And he wrote a piece analyzing each of MLB's 30 teams from the standpoint of the trade deadline, an early trade deadline preview. And what Passan did for each team was he addressed the team in 3 different ways. The team's objective, the team's best player available, and then what to know about the team. So when it came to the Nats, Passan had the Nats objective as start winning. Here. Passan had the Nats best player available as reliever Kyle Finnegan. And Passan wrote the following in the what to know category for the Nats. Quote, "The Nationals don't have a whole lot at the upper levels of their minor league system, which makes parlaying their near 500 record into a postseason run unlikely. They also don't have much desirable major league talent that they're willing to move. Finnegan will be a good high leverage option for a contender. Perhaps the team takes on Michael Soroka and sticks him in the bullpen, where he was excellent last year. Ahmed Rosario is a lefty-crushing utility man, and he'll find a home. Nathaniel Lowe's $10 million plus salary is a hindrance, but he's on a 110 RBI pace. There is no Soto return, or even a fraction of it, coming. Sooner rather than later, the Nationals need to bump the payroll and complement James Wood, C.J. Abrams, and MacKenzie Gore, all of whom have been excellent. For now, though, the Nationals are close enough to contention to see it, but far enough that it feels a ways away. End quote. And I thought that last sentence actually captured things well. The Nationals are close enough to contention to see it, but far enough that it feels a ways away. Now, as we've talked about with the 3 wildcard teams now in each team, you don't have to be great to do great. And if the Nats can get to 500, then they are legitimately in wildcard contention, in my opinion. Heck, you could argue right now the Nats are legitimately in wildcard contention when you look at the wildcard standings. It will be a real bummer if the Nats end up being sellers come the MLB trade deadline. There's no question about that. I actually think that that's one of those telling measures of where the Nats are if they again are sellers come an MLB trade deadline. But the truth is, if the Nats are a distant ways away from 500, they're going to need to be sellers come that deadline, or at least they should be sellers come that deadline. And conversely, if the Nats are at or super close to 500, then my guess would be that they probably are not sellers. I think what's going to be fascinating is if it's one of these borderline scenarios. Let's say the Nats are like 2 games under 500 as they approach the deadline. Then what? You know, you're close enough to smell it, but you're not there. And there's an argument in that case for selling. There's an argument in that case for buying. There's an argument in that case for doing nothing. So this could end up being a tricky call for Mike Rizzo because it may not be glaringly obvious come the trade deadline where exactly the Nats are in terms of postseason contention.
I'm right there with you. I think mid-July sort of will be an interesting mile marker for where they're at in terms of the rapidly approaching trade deadline on July 31st. Right now, if I had to guess, my hunch is that they don't trade anyone at the deadline and sort of play it down the middle and don't be a buyer and don't be a seller unless things really fall apart. Finnegan, we went through this last year, right? And Finnegan didn't fetch what Rizzo wanted at the deadline. It seems like he didn't even fetch what Hunter Harvey was worth on the trade market. So if Finnegan's the kind of like the guy that might get traded, then that says to me there probably won't be a deal unless, as I said, everything just goes sideways and they know that they're not playing for anything in August and September. I do want to add, Al, with the 3 wildcard thing, and I'm right there with you, the beauty of it is that it waters down the playoffs and teams like the Nationals can hope that they get in as a 3rd wildcard team. But I just want to throw something out there as you look at the standings, and that is basically the Colorado Rockies and their effect on the National League playoff hunt this year. They're horrendous. They've won 11 games. They might not win 35 games this year, which is borderline impossible. Where I'm going with this is its effect on the win-loss record with the other NL West teams who are cleaning up on them. If you look at the AL Central last year, every team finished over 500. 3 of them made the playoffs, and that's when the White Sox only won 41 games because the Tigers and Cleveland, etc., mopped the floor with the White Sox. So I just want to add that as well, that the Nats have that extra thing to fight through, which is you're going to have some inflated records out west.
Yeah, and this is with each team playing its division rival just 13 times in the regular season now, as opposed to 19 times a few years ago. Imagine if we were back in that era, what those National League West records would look like. The Rockies did win on Tuesday evening, a 3-2 win at the Miami Marlins. But yeah, like Tim was saying, 11 wins for the Rockies here, 11-50, a run differential of minus 182. I mean, there is bad, and then there is historically bad. And that is what the Colorado Rockies are right now. But yeah, with the trade deadline, I'm a big believer in you got to pick a lane. Like, you're either a seller or a buyer, and to do nothing is kind of the worst thing to do. And if the Nats do have viable trade chips in Finnegan and say Josh Bell and say Ahmed Rosario and say Michael Soroka, and they're not doing particularly well, but they're reasonably close to 500, I think it's awfully tough to just not do anything and end up not getting pieces back for guys who may well be leaving you in free agency this coming offseason. But I understand the dilemma here because you have a fan base that is sick of the rebuild. You have a fan base that is sick of this team selling at every trade deadline now, it seems like. You have an organization that is starving to be playing truly meaningful games come August and September. And you have a roster that is promising. And so even if you're not at 500 come that deadline, can you sell yourself into thinking, well, if we keep this thing intact, can we maybe make a charge come August and September? So it's not an easy spot for Mike Rizzo. You almost hope that the team either goes hard in one direction or another. Like if you're not going to surge, then don't do well and make it obvious regarding what the team should do come the deadline. It almost feels like if you don't do either, if you're stuck in the middle, that might be the worst thing for the organization. But we'll see. A lot of ways this could play out over these next few weeks.
Certainly, and I will say, with Ahmed Rosario, I don't know if he's going to be on the roster come late July, just from a matter of musical chairs with the roster itself, and whenever House gets called up, and other young guys, and they don't play him a whole lot, and he is only making $2 million this year, so if they're going to trade him, almost maybe trade him now. Maybe you catch a team that needs an infielder at the moment.
Well, it's interesting, too. Jacob Young is beginning a minor league rehab assignment. Alex Call has been buried. Alex Call does not play anymore, despite having played really well earlier this season. And you wonder if his roster spot could be in trouble once Jacob Young is ready to be activated. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can hit us up on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email the show, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Tim Shovers, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
And House rocks one to right. Brady House gives Rochester their first hit, and it's worth 4 bases. Wow.
Yeah, that got out of here real fast. And that's what this kid can do. He's got a lot of power, and he's got power to all fields, and you see it right here. Just a fastball in the inner half that he lets get deep.